everybody. Welcome to Heal the Shadow in Your Relationships too. And today we have with us the beautiful Jill Crosby. Hi, Jill. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks, Neola.
And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jill. Jill is the owner, founder of spiritualsingles.com, the largest exclusively conscious spiritual dating site on the internet, launched in 2000. And over the last 15 years, her flagship site has evolved into the Conscious Dating Network, which is comprised of 18 conscious, spiritual, and green dating sites, all sharing the same large database of members, with the latest addition to the network being Green Singles. Wow, congratulations on all that expansion, Jill.
Thank you.
That's amazing. So for the first 9 years while growing her business, Jill worked for the oldest, largest brick and mortar photo video dating company in the US. And during that 9-year stint, she personally interviewed over 6,000 singles in 7 different states. So we're going to talk a little bit later about how much perspective that gave you. And she also owns spiritualevents.com and consciousevents.com, where event facilitators can upload and promote their events internationally. So thanks so much for being here, Jill. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Oh, well, thanks. I'm glad to be back again.
Yay. And of course, we're talking about the shadow in our relationships. And a cloud just passed over as I said that. My room got dark all of a sudden. That is spirit absolutely guiding these proceedings. So what does that phrase mean to you, shadow relationship?
Well, to me, there's different aspects in our personality that are triggered and we react. Instead of acting, it's just a quick reaction. And these reactions, in my opinion, hold us back from expressing our greatness. And they're emotions like jealousy and unworthiness and cattiness and controlling and things that don't really help us along our evolutionary path, so to speak. I don't want to be jealous. I don't want to feel unworthy. These things aren't helpful. And yet sometimes they get triggered and we just automatically react. And so I see them as shadow, and I also see them as everything being one and everything being divine. And we talked about this briefly in the last interview. So getting out of that duality aspect, and that the shadow is part of the divine as well. And so it's about embracing it all and healing it all and loving it all, that unworthiness, that jealousy, and really going deep within and feeling it and connecting with it and loving it and letting it go, so that it's not affecting us and we're not reacting. We can actually take a breath and consciously choose how we'd like to act, and instead of just an automatic reaction.
Well, I am so on the same page with you about that. We just want to really take that spiritual approach and heal it. But you said a really interesting thing. All of these aspects that we're not proud of in ourselves, but they do come up. How can that be part of the divine? I know the divine is everywhere, right? Of course, it's in all things, so it's got to be in that part of us. But I mean, sometimes we just go, oh, I so don't feel divine and spiritual when I'm being that way. So how can it be? How can it be that the divine is there too?
Well, and I know you know the answer too, but it's a good discussion topic. It's if divinity is everything, then there is no separation. There is no good. There is no bad. Nothing is, it's just all divine. It's like all the same material, and it's just how it shows up, how it appears. And I look at our whole life here on Earth as a big experiment and almost a big game. Like we all said, we were all divine, we were all one, and we all broke off into little sparks and pieces. And then, because we wanted to experience ourselves as something different and have that experience, and then we decided, let's have an experiment. I mean, we've probably been on lots of planets and lots of different things. And then with Earth, we decided, well, let's have this big experiment where we forget our divinity completely. We forget that we're divine, and we incarnate as these human beings, and we see the big test, the big experiment is if we can remember it and get back there. So and there's people that volunteer to be the bad guys, to help us to learn unconditional love and forgiveness, and to help and compassion. And there's people that choose to be. I mean, I had a vision one time that was so cool, and I think it's appropriate to talk about it. It was where everybody in the whole world woke up at once and remembered their divinity. Everybody. Yeah. And we all walked outside and we looked into each other's eyes, and we saw, it was like the gig was up, the game's over. And we kind of laughed. And the guy that was homeless and outside and hunched over and begging stands up straight and goes, I played a good homeless guy. That was great. And the rich guy that has all these cars, like, cars and houses and boats and everything, he's like, geez, I have 10 cars. Do you need a car? I don't need all these cars. Who needs a car? Here. And it was like, we just treated each other like family and took care of each other. And the people that grew food just grew tons of food and shared it, like, here, who needs food? And the solar panel people and the wind turbine, it's like, pass it all around, and free energy for everybody. And it was all, and there was no word called peace, because it was just a given. There was no money. We didn't need any money, because we took care of each other, because we're family, literally. And when we're all one, even the murderer, even the guy that commits, horrible crimes, is still divine. Everybody's divine. So it's the same thing, like our emotions, our jealousy, that's divine too. It's just a game that we're playing, and we're wanting to remember and get out of the theater of it. And I rise above it a lot. And I know you do too. It's like you rise above it and see it and go, it's just a theater. It's a game. And so let's have some fun with it. Let's play with it. Let's evolve past it, and let's help each other remember. And that's kind of, I feel like, part of my mission is, let's remember our divinity, and let's get out of this bullshit that we're, everyone's on this treadmill trying to make money and buy stuff, and, because it's so programmed into society that this is how we're supposed to be. So that's a bit of
we're going to have to find a new economic model, rather than making people feel bad about themselves in order to make them buy stuff so that the economy can work, right?
Right, exactly. It's this perpetuating thing that the media and the elites all, get so many people involved in. And when you can step out of that and actually see it for what it is, and not buy into it literally, not watch the news. I listen to the alternative news much more than the regular mainstream news, because I want to know what's really going on behind the scenes, and not what the media, because the media's they're bought off. They tell us what they're supposed to tell us.
I look at the news and I go, the purpose of the news is for me to know where I need to send my blessings.
Right. Good.
Bless that area that's going through war. Bless those people that just got affected by murder. Like you said, all of these shadow aspects, these things we don't like in ourselves, they are divine, because they are part of the journey to get us back to our higher self, to our higher consciousness. So I loved your dream. You have such a generous soul, Jill. I love that. So Thanks. Beautiful. So I'd love to get back to what we talked about in the intro, that when you were working for the oldest brick and mortar photo video dating company in the US, you said you interviewed thousands of singles during a 9-year stint. And I would love to hear what you learned about the shadow from interviewing all those people.
Sure. The main thing I noticed, and I would sit with people and interview them for an hour and a half each. So I really got to know each individual. Yeah. And I noticed, I think it's a human condition. And I think it's programmed in from the Anunnaki when they created us to be a slave race. Ooh. And what it is, it's a deep seated feeling of unworthiness that just about, and I saw it in everybody. It was, beautiful, sexy, attractive women, tall, dark, handsome, wealthy men. Didn't matter what they looked like, didn't matter what job they had. pretty much everybody had this deep-seated unworthiness. And that was kind of amazing to me for seeing that for so long. And I'll tell you, I've tapped into it in myself as well, because it's just prevalent with everyone. And one day I was doing a divine presence meditation where I was bringing in my divine presence, and it was a particularly strong, powerful one that I did for myself. And when I came out of the meditation, I went outside, I looked around, I've got pine trees everywhere. I live in the mountains, and everything looked different, and I realized that my unworthiness had was gone. Because it makes sense if you think about it. If we embrace our divinity completely, as much as, as much as we possibly can right now, then there's no unworthiness anymore. We can't feel unworthy if we're divine.
It
So,
is, it's so hard for people to feel worthy. I have to tell you that I caught myself because we're busy entrepreneurs,
mhm.
and I tend to have my life dictated by my to-do list, and I'm not, not proud of that. But there was a point here recently where I was feeling like, wow, I think I'm on top of all my projects. I think I'm on top of all everything going on in my business. And I feel like I actually have some more time. And then what I did, I saw myself sabotage it,
Mhm.
getting distracted down this track that I didn't even need to pursue. I'm starting to think of a new project that's got nothing to do with anything that would be good for me or my personal life or my business or anything. And once I spent enough time on that, I backed myself up again, and it was like, oh my God, now I got to, I'm behind on this and I'm behind on that. And back to the old familiar feeling. Now I'm back to what I'm used to just be nerve wracked about how behind I am and how I'm not getting caught up. And I realized, oh my God, that's something I'm doing things to make sure that I stay in that place of unworthiness, like you say, because that's our comfort zone. So can you say that about like a lot of the single people out there? Maybe they're creating the kind of an atmosphere that they can't get the love of their life because that's their comfort zone, and it's so hard to break out of that.
Mhm. Yeah. And there's a difference there between, because I noticed that too, that a lot of people, and I've been there, and I catch myself too sometimes. Mostly now, I've manifested. I created a situation where I don't have to work that much. I can work 2, 3, 4 hours a day, or I can work 10 hours a day if I want. It's all what I want to do. But the business is going well, and I've got a team, an awesome team that works with me. And but that's not even the point. The point is creating a life that's not so jam packed. Like, I don't schedule myself back to back things, because I don't want to be that busy anymore. I was that busy for 9 years when I worked. There was Great Expectations was the company, and I worked for them for 9 years. And before I'd go into the office, I would work my business, Spiritual Singles, and the other sites. And then after, when I get home at like 9 or 10 at night, 10 hours later, I would work again. I did all the customer support for a long time, because it wasn't really making a lot of money in the beginning, and hardly any. I mean, I couldn't even live off of it for 9 years. I mean, I'd work the day job, make a lot of money with them, and put it all into the business. And I didn't have much of a social life, and I was stressed, and I was working all the frickin' time. It was like, this is ridiculous. I don't want to live this way. It was just a big wake up call. Like, I'm killing myself working all these out. What am I doing? And so I shifted, and I took a big leap of faith, because the business wasn't earning enough really for me to live off of at the time. Took that leap of faith and put all my energy into the business, and that's when it took off. And and I see that other people schedule themselves so back to back with things, business, work, social, and instead of just saying, hey, I don't want to be that busy. I'm going to just not do anything today. I'm going to sit outside, and or go to the beach and just sit and watch the waves, or wherever you might live. Do something that's nourishing for your soul. I like to go find a river and just hang out and take some photo. I love taking nature photos, and just take some pictures and play with my dogs and relax and go on hikes and be in nature, and just and not have to be rushed back to do anything. Like, I'm like, I'm not going to make plans tonight because I'm going on an awesome hike, and then I just want to come home, make some dinner, chill out, maybe have a friend over, whatever. And just, so it's scheduling. It's all our choice. And
Yeah.
and that's like what I was talking about before, was the um, just media and society programming us to be busy and to stay, because the busier we are, the less in touch with ourselves we are. And that sabotages us from going within, from meditating, from connecting. And we get all wrapped up in the drama of everything, and that doesn't serve us either, to be all into this drama and that drama. It's like, wake up, remember the theater and the game, and make time for yourself, and just slow the fuck down.
I mean, it's so important because we can't be in touch with our inner guidance if we don't take a pause and if we don't relax. We can't get perspective. I mean, I counsel people on how to, heal their shadow. And you can't heal your shadow if you don't give yourself a moment to reflect on, what was this feeling I was just going through? What's underneath the feeling? What else needs to come up about this? What do I need to look at so that I can integrate this into myself, so that I can become the whole being that then attracts my perfect mate to me, instead of just staying in this artificial comfort zone where I'm not worthy, but you don't know that you're putting out that you're not worthy. And all the stuff that you do kind of sabotages you into going, I'm not worthy, but you don't know it. And you go, I just can't find the right person. There's nobody of quality out there. Dating online doesn't work, or whatever people want to say about it. So what are some of the other shadow aspects that you've noticed in singles that you think that need to be healed? Unworthiness is definitely a big one. Everyone's got it, like you say.
Yeah, that's definitely, I would say, the number one, and one of the core, like core ones, that if when we can heal that, everything else tends to fall into place a lot easier.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Another one I've noticed is being able to accept criticism or feedback. And there's three in particular that I'd like to talk about right now. And one, that criticism one, was a good one, because I remember, gosh, many years ago, my boyfriend at the time, Glenn, this is when I lived in San Diego, he when I would suggest something to him, like, oh, maybe you could do this way, or do something that would really be beneficial to him. And I wasn't being critical or naggy or anything, but I was like, hey, what about this? And maybe it was something about his personality, like I would see him sabotaging himself or doing something. And so I would make a suggestion. And most people that I know, including myself in the past, would react in a defensive manner. Like, oh, well, I do that because of this. And what he did, which really what was shifted me, I love, learning from watching how other people do things. He said something like, oh my gosh, thank you. That's such great advice.
Oh.
I'm going to totally take that in and do it. Thank you. Oh my gosh. He was excited. And I learned that from him, was like, why do we have to be defensive? What are we defending? I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to improve. I want to fetter out anything that could be better and shift it. So that was a big one, was that accepting feedback and criticism in a, like, hey, I know you want the best for me, and gosh, thank you. Because there's no reason why we need to defend this stuff. I mean, it's not stuff we want to keep.
Right.
Right.
The shadow wants to defend itself, because if we shine the light on the shadow, it dissolves, and it's afraid of losing its life. And it also thinks it's protecting us. So that's why we defend it.
And sometimes we have to have a talk with it and say, all right, what's the benefit in here for me? Like, a lot of women will hold on to extra weight because they want to protect themselves. And I've certainly done this, where I want to, it's subconscious of protecting because I grew up in San Diego, and there's this program in San Diego and a lot of places that if you're not perfectly thin, you're not worthy of a man. And for men, it's more, if you're not wealthy enough,
Right.
you're not worthy of a woman. You can't get a woman without money. And it's all bullshit. And when we can love our bodies and love ourselves completely as we are and just shine and glow and connect with that divinity, then it's so powerful. And that's part of healing the shadow, I think, is number one, is realizing what triggers us, and then being able to, sometimes, like I was saying, if you have to talk to a certain aspect of yourself, like maybe it's like for me, um, and I know you're probably going to ask me this later, but a good example, I healed a relationship, like my very first relationship, like where I was really in love, and first guy I had sex with, and I was 16, he was 21, yeah, the first one.
Woohoo.
And he ended up cheating on me with, get this, my best friend and
Oh.
my other best friend at my other best friend's house.
Oh.
So it was like a triple whammy. And I
Ouch.
spent like 2 days in my room crying. I just disowned them all. No more friends, no more boyfriend. That was it
Uh,
when I found out. And then I thought, this was when I was 16. So I shoved it down, and thought I healed it or whatever, didn't know any better. And then even, I don't know, it was like maybe a year ago or so, it came up for me to heal.
wow.
It came up, and I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. I need to heal this. And
Yes.
this is one of the things that had been holding me back from meeting my divine complement man. And so it was a matter of talking to my 16-year-old within, and loving her, and then having her, which is part of me. I'm not, it kind of bothers me when people talk third person about part of themselves, but it was in the past, so it's kind of different. Regardless, that's semantics, but healing that part of me, that young girl in me, and forgiving all three of them, which I had done before, but I mean on a super deep, I totally get, I see your divinity. I know you made a mistake and you probably regretted it your whole life. And so I just let it all go. It was like, whew, forgive, 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 love, love, love. And it feels so much more freeing to be able to
And
do.
see how that situation actually served you.
Right.
Oprah said, you've forgiven somebody if you can actually be grateful for
Yeah.
what happened.
Yes. Yes. And
That,
learn the lesson, because there's always a lesson there. And
yes.
even just me being so grateful now, like, oh my gosh, uh, I had kind of put up a little bit of not a wall, but maybe a protection of like, well, or what it was, the deep program was, I'm not worthy of having a man. He's going to cheat on me. And maybe with my best friend.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
So being able to release that and go, yeah, I'm totally worthy. I am enough. It was like,
Yes.
I'm not enough to keep his attention. And and I keep reinforcing that with myself of, not bragging, but just like, I'm getting even more and more confident of like, yeah, I am worthy. I have a lot to offer. I'm an awesome person. And just feeling that within myself. So it's not, oh, I'm so freaking great. Look at me.
Yeah.
It's just like, no, I'm okay. I'm good. I'm enough for somebody. And being able to share that even on dates, like, going out on a date, or with my lover who's 21 years younger.
Woohoo.
Just, yeah, just being 8 months, and we have an open relationship, which is pretty cool. But just being able to share, myself, and knowing I'm enough is huge.
Is
And I
huge.
know, and a lot of people have those, even from past lives, not necessarily just this life, but a lot of times from past lives where we have been hurt and thrown under the bus, so to speak. But it's all part of the game. It's all part of the theater of it,
Yeah.
so that we can learn and grow and remember our divinity again. And we
It's
just have to remember that.
yeah, yeah. No, it's all good. So did you cover the three things that you wrote down about the?
No, no.
Okay, let's
No,
go there.
yeah, another one was that I noticed that a shadow aspect that singles have is being able to let go of control. And a lot of it's women, but sometimes men too. And I know I grew up, my mom was, she's passed now, but she was a pretty controlling person. And so that was, I know for me, was my role model. And it took, I love learning from ex-boyfriend or boyfriends at the time,
Of
but
course.
Tony, back when I lived in Florida, you'll hear where I've lived too, based on stories, right? All over the country. Anyway, Tony and I had been dating for a little while, and we had decided to move in together. And he came over to my house before we moved in, and I was packing and getting ready to move. And I asked him if he would help me because I had to. It was like we were on a time frame of I had to get packed, and this is when I was working the day job and my business, and so didn't have a lot of extra time to be packing up a house. And so I asked him to help me, and he said, "No, I don't want to." And yeah, and that's how I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to help me? Well, come on, you got to help me. We're moving in together,
Yeah.
and no, I don't feel like it. He wouldn't, and I would try to control him and manipulate him to get him to help me. And I've learned from that experience, oh, you can't control this guy, and I realized that I was trying to control him. And it was such a huge, and then after I let it go and didn't, it was like, okay, I understand. Great, you're not in the mood to pack. I totally fine. I'm not gonna, it's not your job. And I let it all go. And then of course he helped me.
Of course, because it's always a dynamic. We create a dynamic. Whatever the energy was there, he didn't want to do it if he was gonna feel like he had to do it.
Yeah, it's better to inspire somebody.
Yeah.
Rather than to expect or demand.
Yeah.
That's not a way to motivate anybody to do anything.
Yeah, so it's easy for us to like judge him and go, oh, how could he be that way? But we, of course, don't know what was going on inside of him that he needed to let go of that finally could bring him around. And good for you that you figured that out.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah.
And the other one that I noticed in a lot of singles, and I hit on this briefly, it is a loving of our bodies as we are. And this is mainly because of mass media, of programming, that we're supposed to be a certain way. But you go to other countries and they like a different type of body.
Yes.
It's not the same. They're not into the American programming so much. And they're more into seeing a person as beautiful and different bodies, shapes, and sizes as beautiful, no matter what. And that's a big one. I like to, when I do groups, I like to lead a meditation where they tap into loving not only their own body, but also when they look around, like in the meditation, I tell them, now look around and see other people and notice their bodies and love their bodies exactly as they are too. Let go of any judgment, let go of any preconceived ideas of what beautiful is, and really just love their bodies. Not them. I'm talking just strangers, like looking around and being, what a beautiful body, no matter what it is.
Wow. That's definitely a stretch for us who are so programmed in this media, but I have to tell you a little story in relation to this because I went back to Lithuania with my family and I met all my relatives there, and they tend to be on the hefty side, and they're looking at me and they all think I'm anorexic. That's number one. Number two, I was talking to my cousin's husband, and they're both quite huge. And mind you, the winters there are long and cold. A skinny person like me just could not survive. And I experienced that when I was living in Chicago. I couldn't survive. So they've got a lot of meat on their bones. And I don't know how the conversation came up, but my cousin's husband said, I don't like skinny women. There's not enough to love.
Exactly.
And he loves his wife. He goes, yeah, I could get hold of her,
Yeah, Yeah, it's so different some places. And even Tony, the guy I mentioned earlier, he was black. And one day when we were living in Virginia Beach, another place, uh, he came into the office where I was working, and my receptionist was a beautiful, large black woman, tall too, tall and big, and beautiful, and fun, spunky, great personality. And Tony took me out to lunch, and at lunch he said, I'll just call her Susan. Yeah, that Susan is really she's sexy. And I went, she is? Really? Why? I didn't, because I was programmed from, Southern California. You have to be thin to be beautiful or sexy. And he's
Yeah.
like, no, she's so confident. She's like, you'd be lucky to get some of this. That's like her attitude. And I love that. To me, it was a big wake up call of like, oh, okay. It's not all about thinness. It's, sexy. Now I really coach it. It can come in all shapes and sizes. I know I've been attracted to men short, tall, black, white, purple. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely. That is something I also learned from a lot of different boyfriends and mates and stuff when they would point out to me somebody that they thought was sexy, and I would look, and it's like, I don't know, I don't see it. But it's not about the physical beauty, it's an energy.
Yes.
It's an energy. And if you get in touch, if you're happy in your body, whatever body you've got, and you are completely at peace and at home with yourself, and you are willing to experience pleasure through your body, then that is the sexiest thing in the world. And you
Yep.
don't have to look a certain way at all.
No, no. It's like, when I'm with someone sexually, it's they tell me, they compliment me like, wow, you are so sexy, you're so sensuous, and you're like so reaction, like you feel, you really are there, you're present, and they appreciate it. And I just, it confirms everything we're talking about. I remember reading, I think it was way back in college, there was a study that proved that confidence was more attractive than actual looks. And I've always remembered that, and like to remind people that confidence is the sexiest thing. Not cockiness,
Right.
not,
Yeah.
but
Not
confidence.
not coming from the ego, but coming from your
Yeah.
authentic self.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's beautiful. So, we're I love talking to you, Jill. The time flies. I was going to ask you about some techniques you use to heal the shadow, or do you want to share with us what shadow aspects you've healed within yourself? I mean, you kind of touched on that, so maybe give
Right.
us.
Yes, I think some techniques are good. I like to, for me, one of my main techniques is, I call it desensitizing myself. Like a couple summers ago, I unearthed, fettered out a program that I had where I would feel guilty if I had casual sex. And I didn't want to feel guilty. I wanted to be able to have lovers in between relationships. And because I'm a sexual person, I like it. I want to have fun, and I don't want to feel guilty. And that's my choice. And there's no judgment around there anymore. But I grew up where that wasn't okay.
Right.
And, if you had casual sex, you're a slut or you're a bad person or whatever. And, and a lot of people have that program. It's a huge program.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's so, and it may be a choice for, it's a choice. A lot of people don't want to have casual sex, and that's
Right.
okay as long as you're not doing it out of the wrong reasons.
Right.
So
Right.
for
Right.
me, yeah, so desensitizing. So I had what I call the summer of sex. And I had a lot of sex with different partners. Some were ongoing lovers and some were just once. And as I had to make sure I got rid of the program. Yeah,
Of course, it was all in the name of research, of course.
right, of course. And it was also about loving my body as I was, and not caring, what other people thought. I mean, not that I did it openly or anything, but just a matter of, until I could let go of judgment towards me and towards them, and really be free, and just experience it in the moment, like 100% present and there, then and now I find I can, if I want to have, I can, and not feel guilty. I have healed that.
Yeah.
And
As
yeah,
long as everybody's on the same page, as
well,
long as everybody's clear, this is just a casual encounter. Nobody's like looking for a relationship and getting hurt.
exactly.
Then
Well,
we're all consenting adults. And
yeah, the
yeah,
honesty is the hugest part, and that's what I've been really practicing over the last several years now, is being brutally honest without being brutal, and being so open that, and telling them, I know that, I'm not in, I just want you as a lover. I'm not interested in anything more than that. Or I'm not sure, let's get to know each other as friends or whatever, but just
sure.
totally honest.
Yeah.
Like being in my open relationship has been great practice, because we have an agreement that we share. If we, either of us, have sex with anyone else or even kiss anyone else, then we tell the other person.
Wow.
And sometimes it's like, I don't really want to tell him, but I agreed to it, so I just do it. I just tell him, and because I know it's going to hurt him a little bit, and he's going to like feel a little, and but that's our agreement. And I've even asked him recently, like, well, do you want to change our agreement? And because I don't want to hurt you, And he's like, no, I still want to know, even if it hurts. I'm like, okay, then. It's all about what two people agree to,
Right.
and even creating the type of relationship that we want, rather than what society tells us to,
Right.
which is
That's
another call that
whole
would be
other
awesome.
topic, but that's what I love about you, Jill, is you are breaking the boundaries of what society has established as the accepted norms for relationship, because it's not for everybody. So
Exactly. And sometimes, like, I'm ready for a monogamous, committed, divine complement relationship now. And I've told my lover, like, that's what I'm ready for. And so I'm going to be dating and meeting men and exploring, and get ready, because it's coming. And
wow.
yeah, which is great. But before, I was wanting a polyamorous. Last time we talked, I was more exploring polyamory and open
Right.
relationships. And I think I told you that I probably would come out the other side wanting a divine complement, which now I
You
am.
did, and here we're happy to see your growth right before our eyes. We're going to have to keep in touch with as Jill's world turns.
Definitely, definitely, yeah.
Well, I'm so thrilled that you were here with us today, Jill,
Oh,
and
likewise.
we will just stay in touch with you, see how it all goes. So,
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
okay, bye everybody. We'll see you on the next installment of Heal the Shadow in Your Relationships.